Welcome to In the Balance, the podcast to help you build your dream team of experts to make your financial goals a reality.
G'day, how you going? It's Phil Tarrant, co-host of In the Balance, the co-produced podcast. We got together and I got him out of the shadows after many years of asking for him. We were just reminiscing about the good old days before we come on air to come out and start actually publicly talking about things. It was tough, but we got him. We've been doing this now for about 10 episodes. Munzurul Khan, chairman and founder over at KHI. Munzurul, welcome back to the studio.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it. How you been, Phil?
I'm very good, mates, and I have some good news and bad news for you. The good news is that this will be a good podcast today.
Yes.
The bad news is that probably not going to have much input from you.
Love it.
Are you going to be okay with that?
I'm going to be okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you've been very accommodating with your time, energy and bandwidth
Yes.
on the In the Balance podcast. And for those of you, if you just found us on In the Balance, the name is very consistent with actually what we're going to and what we've been trying to achieve over this series of podcasting. And that is, as you embark on a journey creating wealth through property, you've got to make decisions all the way through it, whether it's where and how and why you're investing, but then also all the constructs around it in terms of your finance, your mortgages, your legal, everything connected with it. And typically, not all decision-making is clear and simple. And in the balance of things, you need to make a call one way or another. So you don't always get it right. I'd like to think if you're tuning into this, most of the time you get your decisions right. But the philosophy of this, Munzurul, is that in the balance of things, you've got to make a call. So hopefully you can make the call the right way with the information that we've been discussing on this podcast.
That's right. I was in a seminar last night and we had a similar sort of a question, and I was giving an example that exactly the same property may or may not be right to different individual on the basis of circumstances that they are, the age bracket that they are, their goals and objectives, their income and all the rest, right? So there is no one decision, and where the In the Balance and the name came up by you and Alex, and we're grateful.
I'm not going to claim the name, but it's absolutely spot on. And a good accountant being the probably the most influential, I don't want to get beaten up by other people, but probably the most influential relationship you're going to have as a property investor. They are, inverted commas, the trusted advisor, trusted professional. Your accountant, you should be leaning on them to help you with your decision makings, even if it isn't necessarily an accounting orientated decision you need to make. So when it comes to property, it might be structure. Yeah. It might be planning, it might be documentation, it might be all that sort of stuff. So, you are going to struggle with your decision making as a property investor, and that's okay. That's normal. That's a good thing as part of it. But you need to be able to have someone you can throw ideas off and actually get advice to help you shape and manufacture the right decision. And typically it's your accountant. So you help with that, Munzurul.
And it's a two-way process, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, two-way process in the sense that level of the accountability and the trust that we sort of receive, we don't take that for granted, right? We sort of say that you need to perform on that trust sort of an absolute ongoing basis. And the moment that you sort of fall a bit, you take the feedback and you learn from it, right? Because the trust means that many of our clients is that when we go through and say that this is In the Balance is our best decision, they do that, right? And then we need to make sure that it's right. Yeah. And we need to make sure that it's right in the longer period of time, right? So it's that agileness, it's sort of that relevance and sort of ongoing learning.
Yeah, and with my decision making, I'll always have an application of a contingency around it. So I'll make a decision, assuming all the information I have, and in the balance of things, I'll make a particular call. But I'll always be thinking about the second, third, fourth order effects of that decision making in a positive and a negative way. So if I do make that decision, what is the ramifications potentially negatively around it? And obviously an accountant can really help shape with those decision making as well. There's got to be a way, okay, what happens? How do I fix it?
Yeah,
so if I make that call, how do I fix it?
That's right. And the last comment which I want to say in there is that it needs to be an ongoing process in the sense that you make a decision today, which is sort of In the Balance is the best decision for you as of today, but it may change in about 6 months' time, 12 months' time, based on the circumstances, right? So you make that decision with the best bit of the information that we have, and then we review that on an ongoing basis.
So over the sort of course of the last 10 months or so, we've spoken with the wide and expansive firm that you've created at KHI. We've spoken with estate planners, we've spoken with lawyers, conveyancers, we've spoken with mortgage brokers, we've spoken with accountants, we've spoken with your property CFO. We've had a lot of very informed and engaging conversations, and it's been very well received by our audience. But in the balance of things, Munzurul, were you always going to set up a buyer's agent's business?
It's amazing because I'm being actively looking to establish the buyer's agents probably at least 3 years, if not 5 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I sort of say that it needs to be the right person because our client group is such a strong level of trust, reliance, years and years of sort of the relationship that we build. So it cannot be a transactional. That's whole buyer's agency. It cannot be a transactional. It needs to be accountable. It needs to be accountable over that entire lifespan. That 30 years that we sort of speak all the time, that how do we service the client for 30 years? So this buyer's agency needs to be 30 years. So for 3 years, for 5 years, we've been looking for one person and we're so excited we found him.
Well, what I would say is that you probably had the pick of the bunch in forming relationships and creating your own sort of sovereign buyer's agent capability. I know that you work very closely with a lot of buyer's agents as an accountant and their clients, rightfully as an accountant who or accounting practice highly engaged with property investors. So the person you've chosen to team up with has probably done more loans for buyer's agents than any mortgage broker I've known, but he doesn't do mortgage broking anymore. Now he's a buyer's agent. Ross the Cane. Roscoe, how you going?
Oh, mate, it's great to be here.
Look at you.
I love the talk about decision making too, and in the balance. I was reading something the other day about the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is the fact that they actually make a decision, right? And we can say with property investing too, there's a lot of property investors, by analysis paralysis, that they do all the analysis, but they never actually make a decision to actually buy a property. And it's that decision. And I think, I was having a chat with Catherine, my wife, about Munzurul and saying, is Munzurul a risk taker? And, he's done obviously very successful. Would you call him a risk taker? And I think, in the balance sums it up, right? He takes action, he makes decisions, but and I'm sure, Munzurul's been my accountant for many, many years. And as, I know he looks after your property stuff too as well, Phil. But, even when he presents something to you, he won't give you an answer, but he'll be very diplomatic about presenting the pros and the cons.
He'll know the answer. He'll know the answer he wants you to make.
Exactly.
But he won't actually tell you what that answer is. And that goes some way to being a good accountant. So in the balance of things for you, this is a brave new world as a buyer's agent. But that said, you do have great pedigree. We'll go a little bit into that today.
You and I were chatting, and I've chatted to Munz earlier. I feel like I've found my thing, right? So in terms of, for many, many years, I've been talking on the strategy side, whether that's, through doing mortgages for people who are buying investment properties. And, as I said, I grew $1 billion book in mortgages. So I spoke to a ton of investors and was behind the strategy of a lot of people, and including, I think I've done a few mortgages for some people around this table as well. And so I've understood that journey. And then as a coach of mortgage brokers, same thing. A big part for mortgage brokers is adding value to clients when they get to a point where their clients have equity in their property. There comes an education point. If they want to build a better relationship with their clients, it comes down to the strategy of property investing. Yeah. So, now I feel like rather than just talking strategy, I can actually help people invest, and that's exciting. And the fact is, I get to look at property, work on strategy, and do stuff that I love. So it's a dream job.
But you don't have to put together mortgage documents.
Exactly,
anymore.
I don't have to do any of the compliance.
So you get to do all the good stuff around investing in property. And that said, though, I know Munzurul, you have a very good mortgage broking finance operation inside of KHI, and we've had some of your colleagues join us on the show before, but. Just to help everyone out with establishing Ross's bona fides, He was Australia's #1 mortgage broker for many years. The Australian Broking Awards, you won the best broker in Australia for many, many years. Well regarded both from your competitors and the peers alike. You headed up Aussie Parramatta for probably 15 years, I would say, nearly that long, which was Aussie's #1 performing mortgage broker for many years. You've worked with property investors. I could probably count hundreds of property investors I know who have worked with you as their mortgage broker for a period of time. You would have done 20 plus loans for us on a smart property investment, umpteen number of loans for Munzurul and every other buyer's agent probably. Well, then invest in our buyer's agent in Australia. You've probably seen most things in around property investment, but probably the highlight of your career was as the first ever guest of the Smart Property Investment Show 10 years ago.
Oh, mate.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I walked in today, I was told that was 10 years ago. And
10 years ago.
First guest.
First episode #1.
Wow,
Yeah.
and that was with you, right?
That was with me.
Wow.
And for those of you who are you're probably tuning into this on the Property Investment Podcast Network, the Smart Property Investment Show is one of the shows on that. Yeah, Ross was the first ever person. So things have only gone backwards since then. But I do reflect on that podcast, and we would have spoken about how finance, how property investing is a game of finance, right? So if you're able to align the tactical access to capital, debt, with the smart application of buying the right property at the right time, in the right place, the right level of maturity, in the right structure, I can see the connectivity with your pedigree in finance broking, now being a buyer's agent. So welcome to the industry.
Thank you, mate.
So is it real? Is it full-time yet for you? Or has this been, you've been sort of stepping in the slowly? I know Munzurul doesn't do anything by half. So what is the relationship? So this is a partnership between you and Munzurul to build out this capability for
Exactly.
KHI.
So, day to day, if you've seen Munzurul's calendar, you'll know that there's not a lot of time. So, in terms of managing day-to-day operations, this is my gig.
Yep.
In terms of, we've already only just got started, but we've already got two full-time, buyer acquisition managers.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
where are they based?
They're based in Melbourne.
Ooh, there's some clues there, Munzurul. Why are they based in Melbourne, Ross?
Well, there's good staff down there, Phil.
Okay. Are you going to be one of these cagey buyers agents that doesn't give anything away? Because there's two schools of thought with this, and as someone who's probably unique in their ability to navigate the world of buyers agents and property investment and stuff, I speak to everyone.
Yes.
There's two camps, and you get to make a choice. You can either be the person that holds his cards really close to his chest and doesn't give anything away unless you're actually engaged, or you can be the provider of information and democratise the whole process and bewilder people so they go, I can't do that myself, I need to use Ross. So
I tend to think, and we've all worked and known each other and good mates, and we believe in that law of abundance, right? And so there's plenty for people to go around, right? There's something like 500,000 property transactions done in residential space every year. So, and even being on the ground, and yes, we're on the ground in Melbourne, and finding deals for us that are doing it full time in a competitive marketplace is tough, right? So even if I gave away all the secrets, the exact locations for people to go and replicate and actually do it, it's still not easy, right? And, most people, run a full-time job, run families, running around on the weekend. The last thing that they want to be doing is looking for an investment property themselves, right? When you're looking for a home, it's hard enough to find the right home, and it takes a lot of energy. I remember when, we've just moved 12 months ago up to Kingscliff in northern New South Wales, and I remember the relief when after 6 months of shopping around, I didn't have to look on realestate.com anymore, right? And that's for my owner-occupied property. But it's the same with looking for an investment property. It still takes a lot of time, and you're going to have to miss out on a number of properties. You're going to have to, build relationships with the agents. You're going to have to learn the market. You're going to have to work out, there's so much underquoting going on. You have to work out what the real value of properties is before you're even in a position to actually acquire a property, right? And in a moving market, which obviously they're the ones that you want to invest in, the time is money. Right? And so I think,
time is certainly money when you consider some of the information that's just come across my desk this morning around out of the Real Estate Institute of Australia, talking about accelerated price growth over the coming period. They're saying it's not going to be like COVID, but ... it's going to be happening. So every day you're not in the market is costing you dough.
Yeah, so if it takes you 6 months to research, get your head around, build some relationships and get to the point where you're getting your offers accepted, how much have you lost in a market that's moving, quickly, right? So
So I like the idea of it. I think you've got a good partner here. I've known Ross for many years. Ross was at my wedding. That's how well I know you. I think I got married before.
What a wedding it was as well, mate.
It was good. Good fun.
Ross was our mortgage broking partner for many years. All my loans, Ross did this, right? So when Ross and we were introduced by one of our mutual client, a lady named Mariana Patchett, and God love her, beautiful lady, and she introduced both of us, saying that you guys should meet, right? I had hardly a small amount of portfolio. I look back and reflect back to it, and I said that KHI Partners and the Aussie Home Loan, in those days, we actually build our business together in many, many, many different ways. So very grateful. In terms of the abundance that Ross says, that is exactly what we do, right? Our objective is give away everything which we do. And very often through that giveaway, we learn and relearn of various things. And rather than looking into the external world with the competition side of it, our view is that how do we look internally and how do we go deeper and deeper and deeper in terms of the service and the product. And if the service and the product is there, i.e. the value is there, then the client will be there. And the other point which I want to say is that, people look into the buyer's agency and some of the fees, and so is that whether the fee is a bit pricey and so. But good Lord, there is a lot of work on the background, isn't it? Poor Ross is finding out there's so much work.
The acquiring the clients is the easy part. It's, and most buyer's agents will tell you the sourcing of the properties is the challenge, right? That's the mortgage broking sort of compliance, collecting documents pain point equivalent is actually, sourcing the properties is definitely their biggest challenge.
Well, I guess, look, knowing your skill set, you got the financial nuance and discipline, so you're well regarded there. You've been coaching mortgage brokers now for probably 7 or 8 years on building robust systems and compliance engines and all that sort of stuff. So all the building blocks of a successful business are certainly there. Well, what I'm curious about is who spoke to who first? Who tabled the idea of this partnership? Was it probably? I reckon Munzurul been probably just like putting breadcrumbs out for years around it, just waiting for Ross to go. Is that pretty much how it's worked out? Or did he just go, Ross, let's do something?
No, it's. I think Munzurul put the opportunity to me at a time where I was sort of at a crossroads in terms of, I was enjoying the sort of the lifestyle that coaching, living on the coast of northern New South Wales, running a coaching business that was, very successful, but, something I could do a couple of days a week. And I sort of looked at myself, I'm 49, I'm not ready to be semi-retired. I wanted to, get back into something, and, I love the hustle, I love the chase, I love a very competitive by nature, and property investment was something that I was really passionate about. So I knew I wanted to get back into, whether it was mortgage broking or something like buyer's agency. I would consider, but then with a conversation, Munzurul again is one of my best friends in terms of only one of I think I had about 4 or 5 people at my wedding 2 years ago, and Munzurul was one of those, right? So very, very close. We've been through a lot. To his word, when I was a mortgage broker, he said, I'll never open a mortgage broking practice, right? And, for the whole time that I was broking, and that we knew each other, he never did. Never did. So it was only after I decided and made the decision that Munzurul opened his mortgage broking arm. So the level of trust that was there between us was something that was, stronger than anything in terms of the values of KHI, which is around contributing to somebody's life, really sort of resonated. Even the stuff that a lot of people don't see that Munzurul does in terms of he's the chair of a number of charities and he has his own charitable foundation. So yes, we work hard, but the values and the ethics are in the right place. So there was that alignment that just made a lot of sense.
There seems to be there's certainly consistent values, which is critical to all partnerships. But have you got the energy anymore? Like, you've built business before, you know what it takes. Like, it's going to be doing a lot of the stuff that you probably weren't doing in the latter part of you having a very large mortgage broker, because there are other people who are doing it, right? Like, you're happy to get your hands dirty and get
definitely.
stuck in.
I think, I'm competing in an Ironman triathlon. On Sunday. So and
get Munzurul doing
it. And this was one of the things that part of the reason is you've got to keep challenging yourself, right? You've got to have goals and you've got to keep doing difficult things, right? Because you've got to keep leaning on the edge of your comfort zone, because look, if you're not growing, you're what? You're dying, right? So it's sort of yes, I'm learning. Yes, a lot of it's similar to businesses that I've ran. And I think, when I go into a new venture, I want to take the stuff with me that I've learnt from my previous business and then make this next one even better, right? So I think from a mortgage broking to coaching, I learned a lot, in my mortgage broking business. I started in coaching business. I started in COVID. I thought I was going to get on stage and go to PD days and present, but I had to learn marketing. I had to learn how to use LinkedIn, how to use, there's a lot of marketing that we're going to be doing within this business that I've learnt through my coaching that will then be even better than what I did in my mortgage broking business. So I think it's an evolution. You're constantly growing, and similar to setting the goal of doing an Ironman. This is my next Ironman in terms of creating this, and we've got goals to create into a $15 million or $20 million business over the next 10 years. So it's not something that we're just going to cruise. It's something that we're going to grow on a larger scale. Yeah.
Good question for you, Munzurul. And I can see a lot of interconnectivity in the KHI, expensive KHI service remit. There would be a lot of clients, I would imagine, who would be able to leverage this pretty immediately. But you do so much accounting for other buyers agents, and you also have a lot of other cross clients with other buyers agents. How are you going to sort of structurally organise this so you can continue to provide those great services to other buyers agents without any sort of sort of what's going on over here type of question?
Brilliant, and love it. And thank you for asking this question. It's so relevant, because one of the first thing which we did is that when Ross sort of joining us is that we actively went around and actively spoke to all the different buyers agents that we work with. Right, there's still a few buyers agents, but most of it we actively spoke, right? And what we have spoken, and the trust is there, because all of those buyers agents for years and years and years that we're sort of looking after, right? So we still sort of communicated very openly. We're not there to take the leads. We're not there to sort of take away something else as such. We've got a very defined CRM which each individual providers, where the lead comes in, the lead goes back to them, right? For years and years and years, we've been looking after many mortgage brokers, as an example. We look after many financial planners, as an example, right? We look after many lawyers, as an example, right? And we've got all of those sub-database, so to speak, where this is where the lead comes in and the lead goes back to that individual as such, right? But we just reiterated this, and we reiterated the pretty obvious, right, that you don't go into a business, try to take away someone else sort of a lead. Lead is actually not our concern, right? Because we look after about 18,000 plus clients at the moment. And when we look around the 18,000 plus clients, is that 8 different premises that we have, 180 odd staff members as such, right? There's just so much lead. It's all us is to maintain the service. The other thing which I say is that Australia being a large country, it is still such a small country. means that your practice is all about your goodwill, right? And that is all about the trust. So if we fall into one of those relationships, the news will spread, right? So we're very, very, very protective in terms of where we are. So there are leads that are sent to Ross as an example, and I say that, well, we can't have the finance as an example. This finance goes to this group.
Yeah.
We can't have the legal. This legal goes to this group as well. So very, very, very clearly we define.
So it sounds then on both sides of the ledger, philosophically, but also structurally, you can manage the ongoing connected relationships with all the people you have, but while also, within an isolated bubble, build out your own.
And we have a very open communication to all sort of our buyers agents, mortgage brokers, everyone that we work through, that yes, the intention is there. We've got a system and process. We've got a bit of a science behind there that everything sort of absolutely vigorously goes back. Let's say Finny as an example, right? Is that Finny is
well, that's interesting because, for those of you who don't know, we invested in a mortgage broking company because of to support property investors, and you can send Finny would happily act for you, Ross. But interesting, you have a mortgage broking company, but you're the accountant for Finny.
That's right. And so Paul Glossop as an example, if I may just say, Paul's sort of a name, good friend, Paul sort of we look after for years, and Paul sort of says this, right? So when we started, we went to Paul and we openly sort of spoken that, Paul, this is what we're doing. And Paul was so gracious. Paul sort of came in saying, how do we help? How do we assist? We sort of almost never had that part of the conversation because it was given.
It's one of the great things I'm seeing around the whole buyer's agent profession. I've sort of given some criticisms around it and cautioned the industry on how it will grow. And it needs to be careful in how it positions itself to the value it provides its clients. That said, however, I would say it's a collegiate industry. Yeah. And to that end, Paul, for example, saying, Ross setting up a bit, how can I help him out?
Exactly.
Get him going like that. Exactly. That's the collegiate nature of it. And I think there's a universal sort of motherhood issue at stake here, and that is for all buyers agents, even though it's a competitive, sector, and you'll be up against your competitors, eyeballing them at auctions every day. It's still collegiate because the buyers agent space wants to grow. Like there's 500,000 property transactions, residential property transactions in Australia, Ross, you said. I don't know. No one knows how many are actually executed for the buyer's agents, but what I would say it's a very small percentage at the moment, and the opportunity is for those clients who it's relevant for to grow the space. So this is an important point.
Yeah, and with quality providers, another guy that sort of reached out is someone like Ben Kingsley, who's a great mate.
Well, you've known Ben for ages.
Yeah, I've known Ben for a long time, and he obviously runs in a similar circle. But Ben embodies that abundance mentality.
I don't want to speak loving, but but Ben is the most open and communicative person to sharing his knowledge and expertise I've ever seen. Is he going to put you on the property couch? I'll be asking for that favour. Go, Ben, mate, come on, it's time. But again, it's that collegiate nature. I think the spirit and camaraderie in this space is good, and it's good to compete as well sometimes. Right, bit of fun.
It is. The thing about business, and as you sort of get older and greyer, as we're all starting to go a bit, you realise that. Business is a game, right? It's a game that we play. It's not the most important thing. We've all got things that are way more important, but business is a game, right? If we treat it like that, it is a bit of fun. There is that little bit of competitive nature. We can learn from each other. But it's like, there's teammates. There's people that you will combine with to, take that game to the next level. And, they're the people that you want to surround yourself with.
And you've done a lot of coaching with brokers in the past. So let's just assume 1 July is day one of KHI Property Partners. Tell me about your first 100 days. What's it going to look like?
Not the Donald Trump 100 days, right?
So I think
make buyers
up until this point, we've been successful. We've got a number of buyers agents agreements, and we've sourced a number of properties up into this. So I see that as like the warm up, right? Yeah. And so 1st of July is the point where at this point in time, creating a business is not just about running a business. It's about creating a brand, creating some personality behind the business. So I think in this day and age, I think Tom Panis said, and one of the brokers said to me, they saw him at a presentation. We say, if you're in business today, you're in show business, right? In terms of you need to create a brand. And I think with that brand becomes the responsibility of education, right? So I think, we want to lead with quality education. So we're going to, create some content, create a market, not only educate the wider industry, but also, we mentioned we've got 18,000 client base.
So you've got 18,000 client, in and around, thereabouts in KHI who are all probably somehow connected in with some mechanism of wealth creation through property, right?
That's right. I mean, 18,000 is the overall client, but then we've got sub-base. This is coming in from this buyer's agents, this buyer's agents, this buyer's agents.
So taking that away.
Take that out, absolutely expressively. We sort of take that out. I think one of the coin which I wanted to say, Ross, is that what is, I suppose, the philosophy, right, in terms of buyer's agency? We start with that contributing to your life. Means that as much as we can contribute, right? And there is a very impactful incident with all of those, right? Because people moving into their retirement, they're having that sort of the lifestyle as such. Second comment which I want to say is that what is the level of the product that we do? So we say all those different buyer's agents, and there's nothing right or wrong. It's just different buyer's agents are different, right? Some number of buyer's agents buying into regional area, number of buyer's agents we would not go anywhere near to the regional area. It's all blue chip, how it is, where it is, right? So we sort of defined a bit of a pathway for ourselves, Ross.
Definitely. So it's the, working out the strategy in terms of along the lines that Munzurul said. First and foremost is how can we contribute to this life? This deal that we're putting the people into has got to, create what we want for our clients, which is, obviously adding value. And in terms of from our, some of the strength and what makes us different is, we've been investing personally, and I think between Munzurul and myself, the number of transactions that
thousands.
Thousands of transactions that we've been a part, and the benefit of hindsight in your own portfolio. So, we were talking about the first property that you bought and sold, and of the years, and you've been investing for over 10 years, there's things you may do differently, right? And so, we've seen a number of these different cycles, and it's interesting when you see some of the newer buyers agents today, and we spoke about, different regional towns, and we've been through that journey. We've seen, the mistakes that people have made and sort of bought in these sort of regional areas. They've had their boom times, but long term, it hasn't worked out so great, right? So using our experience in terms of what we've learned over time to be able to make decisions for clients where we can get them into the right property for them, where, it may be a property that, we can manufacture equity in that property. It might be, timing the market, somewhere like, we look at, Melbourne at the moment, where the trend is, over the next 10 years, the property is undervalued, right? When you look at, Brisbane's gone up by 80%, Perth's gone up by 80%, all since COVID. Adelaide has gone up by 80%. So a lot of these other areas in the last 5 years have had their growth, and they're massive levels of growth where you compare it to somewhere like Melbourne, who's only gone up by, say, 14%, right? Whilst it may not happen in the next 12 months, we know that with a long-term lens in the right areas, and especially when you think about where is the drivers for population growth, and a lot of it is on that eastern seaboard in the major cities, right? In terms of, because that's where the companies want to go, that's where the jobs are, and that's what's going to attract the growth in these certain areas. So using our sort of combined knowledge to come up with the right strategies for clients that can as we said, really contribute to their life and their overall sort of goals is something I think is going to separate.
I suppose being a value-based as opposed to a transaction-based, and transaction-based is that we see is that there are lots of really good buys agents. There's no question, right? But some of the sort of the product that we say, and we sort of say that, it's just sort of that really lower end. Is it really a bit of a transaction? Is there a longer term sort of a goals, right? So, and when you go a little bit higher on that sort of the transaction, rather than going 400-500, you go to 700-800, means that you get less transaction and arguably less revenue as such, and that's okay.
Yeah.
From our point of view, that's okay. We would much rather buy around that sort of 700,000-800,000 under the current market as opposed to really going at that sort of the bottom end. Because again, it comes back with that 30 years of accountability, we say, right? Because some of those regional areas, he said, is that over the next 2, 3, 4 years does very well. But if we reflect back in about 10 years' time, 15 years' time, 20 years' time, 30 years' time, I still want to be accountable at that point of time, saying that was a good decision for a very long period of time and not just that shorter period of time. So many things comes in, right? Of course, your cash flow comes in, right? But then we look into the diversification. So while, let's say, Melbourne, that Ross is going deeper, as many other buyers agencies are going deeper, right? It's almost no secret in Melbourne at the moment. It's sort of which suburb that you go. But there would be a period of time where Melbourne will become good price, right? There were years and years and years that I was speaking about Brisbane as an example. Now we sort of say Brisbane has gone through a bit of a growth. Yes, the Olympic coming in, do we still have a bit more growth left? But it has done quite a bit, right? And Melbourne has got some negative with land tax and a few other things as such, right? But you sort of say, good Lord, if you look into some of the prices, 500, 550, 600, you still can buy houses in Melbourne, which is crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking to get some stuff in Melbourne personally at the moment. One of the greatest challenges I think you're going to have, Ross, is not being a mortgage broker, being a buyer's agent first and a mortgage broker second, not getting too involved in the finance aspects of working with your clients. How are you going to just keep yourself disconnected? Because it is a game of finance, to be fair.
It is
such a strategic and tactical advantage you have as a buyer's agent is that knowledge, but one of your greatest strengths could potentially be one of the greatest handbrakes you have.
No,
thinking out loud.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky the fact that, personally, I'm connected with a lot of great mortgage brokers, and KHI has a lot of great mortgage brokers. So, I feel that, as you mentioned, I can understand the strategy, and everything comes down to finance. So I can understand the decisions, right? When someone needs a certain yield in their self-managed super fund for that deal to work, I can understand why, right? Because the income that goes into a self-managed super fund is a majority of the rental income. Because when we look at, it's only 11% of someone's salary, it's not a huge amount, right? But so the rental and the return, so to be able to put the right asset and understanding, the lending restrictions that goes with something like self-managed super fund puts me in a good position to find the right assets.
That's a huge advantage. I think that would be that sort of dichotomy between being transactional versus value-based, right? That is truly value-based advice that you can provide. So you're a real estate license now?
Exactly.
How'd you find licensed. That? How'd you enjoy it? Every state in Australia?
So in terms of...
have you got a real estate license? You would have one.
I do.
Of course you do. I'm thinking about going to get my own.
So it was interesting in terms of, I remember doing it and how long is it going to take me to do it? And they said, on average, it's going to take 3 months. I'm like, 3 months? We want to launch this thing a little bit quicker. And I'm like, what's the quickest person done it? And they said 10 days. Okay. I'm like, all right, there's a challenge, right? So I got it done in about 14 days. But
did you learn anything from it? Or was there anything you went, that's new, or was it just process?
To tell you the truth, there is no particular buyer's agency license. Right? It's all around, to open your own real estate agent office. So 99.9% of it is totally irrelevant to, actually running a buyer's agency business. It's more set up to run a real estate, but obviously, to be a buyer's agent, you need the appropriate licenses. So to do it, you need to sort of tick the box and to do the course. A lot of it, given that I've played in the property space for so many years, was
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
The good thing is that, and obviously this is the next career for you. You can go back into all those Young Gun Awards now, Ross. New entrant. This is, because one of the great things about buyer's agency, it's attracting people from all levels of their careers. But I would say your entrance into it, you probably go into it with more scar tissue and more knowledge and around property than pretty much anyone I've ever seen. So look forward to seeing it thrive, mate.
Oh, man.
You're obviously excited about it.
I am. It's given me a new lease of life. And as I say, you guys, I generally feel that, I'm excited to go into work every day. I get to, to genuinely help people, and I get to, look at something I love, which is property in a day in, day out basis. So,
And as part of this, no doubt, like Munzurul, you'll continue investing yourself. And, is your personal objective to keep building out your portfolio?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the more that I learn, and one of the things is it's what you learn when you know everything that counts, and some of the stuff that I've been getting into on the different commercial opportunities and looking at some feasibilities with Munzurul and
developments and stuff. I was going to ask you, so investment, you're not doing owner occupied stuff; it's only investment, resi and commercial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of we want to be able to provide both services, and as I said, in terms of one of the areas that I did a bit in terms of mortgage broking was commercial, so I understood the basics of it, but getting my head around it as a buyer's agent has been exciting, because there's some really good opportunities, and when you start to look at the numbers and cash flows, especially it used to be easy for us to go and get a 6-7% yield in the resi space. It's not that easy anymore, right? No. So when you look at the commercial space, there's some exciting opportunities, and especially for again going back to the borrowing capacity, a lot of the biggest struggle with a lot of property investors and people that have been investing that I've known for a longer period, they hit their borrowing capacities, right? A great thing about commercial is it opens the door with some different lending opportunities that I'm aware of, like lease docs and so forth, that these same people can, leverage good returns through the equity that they've built up, and they may have hit a ceiling on their resi side, but they're good to go when we look at a commercial side. So that's exciting, right? You're unlocking opportunities for clients.
The key thing, and this is and commercial investing has really changed over the last 5 years. It used to be like a bit of a well-kept secret, but now it's been completely democratized, and I think I've probably got some way to reckon it for all those people going, don't stop talking about it, Phil. Stop talking about it. But it's showing people are moving into commercial a lot earlier in their investing career than what they used to, and there's a lot more competition there with buyers agents right now. And when you look at sort of deal flow, when you speak to people, it's there's not a lot of good deals these days, sort of under $1 million, maybe $1.5 million bucks. But if you're a resi investor, to your point around, if you can raise the capital through a refinance and manage that, like you can deploy that money a lot more creatively in commercial assets through some of the other financing solutions available.
We speak about the that manufacturing growth as an example, and for years and years and years we spoke the manufacturing growth in terms of the residential property, but the same concept applies to the commercial property and probably applies a lot easier. Right, whether it is in terms of your lease to be renewed at the market value, whether it is lease becoming in longer term, whether you just add away bits and pieces to it and the rent increases, whether it's a mezzanine floor, hundreds of different ways that one can, right? But all of those knowledges are becoming a lot more general knowledge, right? Public knowledge as such. Where I'm excited is that if I look back from a client's portfolio, we always speak about that diversification. We speak about that long-term sustainability. We speak about that balance, sort of that portfolio over a period of time. And very often we say that, well, in between different estates, whether it's Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, that gives you a bit of a diversification. But you add away the commercial property into the right way, then not only you've got all of those different estates, you've got the residential, you've got the commercial, you've got the cash flow, you've got the manufacturing growth, and you've got the manufacturing growth on both sides, and the finance benefit, as Ross said, with some of those lease stock and self-sustaining trust and so as well, right? So there is definitely time and place, and in the longer term, it's the balance of it is the portfolio.
Well, lots for us to explore as you shape this. No doubt we'll see Ross on the podcast a little bit more now.
Excellent. We're excited.
It's really, really good. So, nice to see you land somewhere where I think you've found a natural home. Yeah. So, it's a good space to be.
Oh, I'm excited.
Start putting those bananas in the exhaust pipes of your competitors down there in Melbourne, so they're not getting the properties that they want. But no, it's good. So, what's the best way to dial in? Like, if people are sort of keen to know more about what, no doubt you've got so many people like myself who were a client at some point on the sort of mortgages side, probably going, oh wow, reconnect. There's probably 1,000 phone calls you can make just to get going, right? But
definitely.
How do people find you, mate? What's the best way?
So just go to the KHI website, so KHIPartners.com.au. Go to our services and you'll find us there. Make an inquiry and reach out, and we'd love to help.
There you go.
Too easy. Our general, the email address as well, which is hello@KHIPartners.com.au, as well as the admin, right? And of course, Ross, sort of the email directly as well. So, yeah.
Well, if anyone tuning this and you contact me, and I'm happy to pass on Ross's details if you're okay with that.
Yeah, definitely,
phone calls and let's get you too busy straight away, right? I hear a lot of buyers agents these days, Munzurul. You must hear this as like they're going no more. Like they've like inverted commas closed their books because they just can't sort of find the stock at the moment, right? So no doubt you'll get the super sleuths out there and track it down, mate. So this is good. Nice one. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is In the Balance. We've spoken to pretty much every connected property advice professional so far. I'm sure Munzurul's got some more up his sleeve somewhere. He's going to throw it in. But thanks for tuning in. Go and tune into those. This is In the Balance. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.